All right. Good morning. Glad to see everybody here. They're already starting to file into the chat and jumping on the stream here. Good to see everyone this fine Saturday spring morning for me. Hopefully you all are doing well wherever you are around the world. I know we have people literally halfway around the world who jump on this stream. So good evening to you if that is the case. Some of you are up very late, and so of course I certainly appreciate that. I appreciate you guys um, being willing to stay up late and hang out with us and just kind of be a part of this live stream, be a part of this project, and so thank you. And then of course welcome to the Dev Mentor Dave Community Development Project live stream. That's a really long name. so so we're gonna work on shortening that up today, hopefully, depending on the responses that we get here. So you should notice if you're in the chat or if you're watching this live, hopefully you see the chat. There should be a pinned note at the top there, and that has a link to a form. Um, Yeah, Mel, I put a notice 30 minutes ago, and I don't know. I might throw another thing in here on Discord. Uh late's better, yeah, absolutely. Anyway, there's a pinned note at the top of the chat. Click on that. There's a link in there for voting for the project code name. We'll talk about that here more in just a second. But yeah, if you're jumping on here, if you would help me out, hit the like button. That just again tells YouTube, hey, people are interested in this, and maybe it'll help push it out to more people who could benefit as being a part of this, and that we would welcome into the community here at Dev Mentor Dave on the YouTube channel and on the Discord. If you're not in the Discord, somebody just mentioned, hey, remind people in the Discord that we're live. So if you're not in the Discord channel, jump into the Discord channel. The link hopefully will work this week and moving forward. There should be a link in the description for that as well. So, excuse me, jump on the Discord channel. That's starting to pick up a little bit more steam now as we're jumping into this project, as we're doing these live streams. We're getting a little bit more conversation and interaction throughout the week on the Discord channel. So definitely jump in there, be a part of the discussion, be a part of the conversation, ask your questions, get help on different things, give feedback. That's really the big place, the main hub of weekly interaction is in the Discord channel. So take part in that, be a part of that. Let's see. If you're not subscribed to the channel, I would assume probably most of you are if you're jumping on the live streams. But if for some reason maybe you're just checking this out and you're not subscribed to the channel, hit the subscribe button, click the bell icon. Last week we didn't really put up any new videos, but I do have some ideas and things. As I get time, I'm going to be adding some more videos, not necessarily related to the live stream, just more videos like the other ones that we have up there. Hopefully are helpful to you as you go on your journey as a junior developer, or even a senior developer, or a mid-level developer, or lead developer, whatever kind of developer you are. Hopefully this content's helpful for you in your journey. So, okay, don't forget, if you are in the chat and you have a question specifically for me, put several question marks in front of it just so I can kind of see it as I read through and I look at the chat. I don't always see everything on the chat depending on how active it is, so I want to make sure I can scroll back and find those questions. So if you have a question, do that. I may give specific questions out to you guys, so feel free to just answer those. You don't have to you know, do anything special in that if I'm asking a question to the chat. So feel free to answer those as we go as well. All right, so on to content. All that initial stuff out of the way. I need a drink of coffee. Hang on. Oh man, I'm not sure. We're out of creamer, and my wife has this. Well, we're out of the creamer that I would use, and my wife has this like raspberry white chocolate creamer. I don't know. I'm getting used to it, but I don't know. We'll see. I think I just need to get more creamer. All right, so Project name, code name voting. As I just mentioned a minute ago, at the top of the chat, there is a link that goes out to the form. It's just a Google form. And you'll notice when you get there, actually, let me go ahead and pull it up just so I can show you guys. You guys are already using it and probably figuring it out more than needing me to show you. But let me switch it up over here. Here we go. Okay. So very simple form. This is basically the same choices 3 times. All right. And the reason for that is because I know some of you may not have specific ones that you've put in there that you gave, but you might like several of them. So I wanted to give you 3 opportunities. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all the responses from those 3 questions, which they're all the same responses. I'm going to take the results and I'm going to add those together so that we can get a total of what everybody really preferred as the top 3. And then either we'll just take the top one from that, or I might put another poll up on the YouTube channel with just like the top 3 or 4 or something like that. So I haven't decided if I'm going to go that route. I kind of want to just get one today. So either I'll create a video with the results later this week, or I will or I'll set up a vote for like a secondary vote. I haven't decided yet which of those I'm going to do, but by next live stream we will have a specific code name. Now, something to keep in mind, as I saw some excuse me, I saw some of the responses and the ideas that came out. There's one that I didn't put in here because it was kind of retracted. But I wanted to remind us, I almost put it in here anyway, just because of this reality, but I wanted to remind us that this is just a code name. We're not necessarily creating a product that's going to be sold. That may be something that we do with it in the future, but I'm not envisioning that right now. This is just a project for us to learn the process of a project and learn how we can maybe even do better at that process as we grow, what it's like to be a part of a team in a project. And so this is not necessarily a name for an application that we're going to sell. So it's not like we're going to be competing with anybody in the marketplace. So it's okay if you have a name that sounds like a real product. You know, that's not a big deal. And it's okay if we have a name that doesn't sound like a real product because it's just a project. It's just a code name. So, but there is something funny that I wanted you guys to see when you look at this. So, oh, that's the wrong screen. Hang on. Let me I just wanted you to look at these options. All right. Now I pretty much copy pasted this from whatever you guys put either on the live stream last week or you put in the Dev Mentor Dave Discord channel. I pretty much just copied things over. But if this doesn't tell you that you guys are a bunch of developers, I don't know what will, because all of them are written like you're writing variable names, right? There's like one, I think, yeah, one down here that has a space in the name, and there's only a couple that are singular names, and there's a lot of like alliteration or you know, not alliteration but alliterative sound, right? Dave's Dimes, Dev Money, you know. It's just, I found it a little hilarious that that's just the way that we developers are. we tend to write things like code names and things like that like this. I just thought that was funny. I thought it'd be interesting to point out. But again, so do vote for 3 things. Please vote for 3 different things. Technically, you probably could vote for the same one multiple times because it's just a Google form. There's nothing sophisticated about it. So please don't do that. Just pick 3 separate ones, your 3 top ones. And we're not weighting them in any way. Like I said, we'll just combine those together. So yeah, we can always rebrand. Exactly, Mel. So yeah, pick 3 and we'll go from there for the for that. So I'll probably mention this a few more times just throughout, just as a reminder for people if they're coming in later, so that they know what to do to go do that voting. We'll put another link. Actually, we're just going to do the voting during the live stream. So once the live stream is over, I'm going to shut this down and I'm going to do the tallying this afternoon and figure out what we want to do. If we've got an overwhelming leader, we'll probably go with that. But if we've got some pretty close ones, we might do a secondary vote. So we'll see what happens there. But anyways, thank you. We got a lot of great responses over the week. So thank you very much for jumping in there and giving us all these. These are great ones. Again, hopefully you saw all of them: Cash Canvas, Dev Money, Dave's Dime, Coney Island Project, Money Wad with a 0 and a 3, Dave Budgeting, Divi Dev, Deep Pockets Financial Folio, Pocket Pulse, Babylon, Arctic Aircorn, Akita, Pennywise, and Pennyworth. So those, yeah, lots of great options there. So I'll be happy to use, honestly, any of them. We got some great ones. So go do the voting. We'll get that figured out. Now that I've wasted 10 minutes of our live stream on that. So anyway, hopefully you guys found that enjoyable in giving those, and hopefully you find it enjoyable and fun as we figure out which one we're going to do. So again, like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Join the Discord channel, be a part of the conversation, comment here in the chat, join in. So, and again, don't forget, if you're going to leave a question for me, put several question marks in front of it so that I notice it. I just saw one that had a Q. I may not see the Q. So put several question marks in. That's just kind of a better indicator for me as I glance through and look at the chat. What tech stack we're going to use to build this budget application? Harsh, we're not going to decide that yet. And I mentioned this on the last live stream, so I won't go into lots of detail, but excuse me. Whew. Heartburn. You don't typically want to just decide what you're going to build in before you go through the project, before you talk to your client, things like that. So, and I want to give you guys the opportunity to give some feedback in that as well. I don't want to just decide this is what we're going to do because that's what I like. We still may do that just to make you guys learn new stuff. But I don't want to just decide to do that right now. I want to kind of take some time and figure that out as we go as a team. I've found that actually is one of the best things that you can do as a development team. Now, sometimes you're just a development team that you do a certain thing and you do it really well. And so you may not take projects that the client may want to do something else, and that's fine. But we're not going to decide that quite yet. We'll probably decide that here in a couple of weeks if we go down fully the progression that I'm thinking that we will for the live streams. So yeah, we probably won't even start writing any code until April, which might disappoint you guys a little bit, and bear with me because we're not just giving you an opportunity to write code. We're giving you an opportunity to see what it's like to be part of a project from start to finish. In the things that you need to think about, whether you're doing this as a freelancer, because let's be honest, especially as a junior dev, a lot of times you have to go out and get some of your own work, and you need to know how to manage a project at least a little bit. And it would help you as you're part of a team to understand how their process works, which will probably be somewhat similar. Every team's a little different, but it'll help you kind of understand how to think through a project and how you can even be a better teammate in that project, even as a junior developer. So that's why we're kind of going through some of these initial steps that we're not coding right away. We will get to coding, and there will be a lot of coding. There will be code reviews, all kinds of stuff down the road. But these first few live streams, we definitely want to lay a good foundation for the project itself and for your coding in the future. Because if you don't have a good plan at the beginning, then your code is not planned out very well, and you can really go off the deep end and go in the wrong direction and make mistakes that you would not have otherwise made with better planning. So we want to walk through this whole process in a way that's going to help us be successful on the project as a whole. So hopefully that helps. Hopefully that makes sense to you. If you're just here for the coding stuff, come back in a few weeks. But if you want to kind of learn along the way, the whole process here, hopefully this is going to be beneficial to you as we go through. So let's see. I just want to see if there's anything else here that I'm missing before we move on. Let's see. Lots of planning and diagrams. Yes, maybe. It just depends, CW, whether what direction we want to go visually. There might be some diagramming, there might be some planning things out. Um, so this will be fun. Yeah, there's definitely going to be some different things. Okay, so one of the things I wanted to talk about here at the beginning was the response. I know many of you responded to the poll that I had on the community page. I know I talked about this a little bit, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I talked about this a little bit on the last live stream. But I do want to just very briefly emphasize both the results of this poll and just some feedback and some concern for you guys. So this is the poll, and basically 80% of those who took the poll don't use any budget at all. Now again, the budgeting is not the focus of the Dev Mentor Dave YouTube channel. Otherwise it wouldn't be called Dev Mentor Dave. But this is something that I really hope as we go through this project, more of you will understand the importance of budgeting. As a developer, I have lost my job many times over the years. I've only left 2 jobs on my own. And if you go look at my LinkedIn profile, you'll see I've had quite a few jobs. And I've never lost a job because of performance or something like that. It's always been layoffs. Sometimes the company shut down. And this is just a reality of the development industry. Especially if you're like me, I like working for smaller companies. I like working for startups and things like that. And the reality is they don't always last. And your job may not last very long. The average is less than 2 years at a particular job for most devs. That's in the United States. I don't know what that is around the world. I know that things are done differently sometimes in other places outside the US. I'm obviously from the US, so I do these things in terms of US knowledge and information and experience, right? So I want to really encourage you as we go through this project, think about how you would use this project for yourself. And I hope that you've taken the time to learn some things about budgeting. We'll talk about that here in a minute. But I really want to encourage you guys. This is unfortunately probably very indicative of the development industry as a whole, just from people that I've talked to. It's probably indicative of most people, period, not just developers. But as developers, with the volatility of our market, of our industry, you really need to have a good grasp of your finances. And if you're not budgeting, can you do that? Can you get by? Yes, you're probably doing it in your head. But if you're not budgeting, you're setting yourself up for potential failure. Not that a budget makes you rich, but it definitely helps you along the way plan out where your money is going to go. So I just want to encourage you. This was for fun. This was for information. I'm not like you guys are horrible people or anything like that. I just want to encourage you. There's a lot of people that are not budgeting their money, and you need to plan for your future. So again, I don't want to spend a lot more time on that. I talked about that a little bit last week, but hopefully this project will give you the opportunity and the understanding as we go through this to take a hold of your finances and do a better job with your finances in the future as well. So, all right, set that aside. So, one of the things we want to talk about, we mentioned it last week, and one of your homework assignments was not just the code names, but your other homework assignment was, doing some industry research. So doing some research around this topic of budgeting. And so I want to talk real briefly about the purpose of industry research and the need for industry research. Why is it that we take the time to do that? So when we're doing this project, we're doing research about budgeting and understanding why you need a budget, how you build a budget, what the purpose of a budget is, all these different things about budgets, right? But if you're working for another company, you're working for a specific industry, you need to understand you need to do some research about that industry. I've actually been dropped into some projects before, kind of right in the middle of a project, and I had no idea what the industry was. I had no idea really anything about the company, what they did. And that was a little nerve wracking because I got in there and I could look at the code. I could see what the code was doing. I could understand what the code, was trying to accomplish, but I didn't know why the code was trying to accomplish that. And that's really important for us to understand what the industry is like, what the goal of the client is like, because that's going to really help us be better developers and be better providers for our clients. So I see a couple questions here. Let me look real fast at what's going on. If you're budgeting for a family and people in that family don't budget, it's unlikely the budget will get used, and kids make it so much worse. Yes to all of that. That's very true. That's why, especially if you're in a family, you and your partner need to be on the same page for that. And that can be very tough to get there. You both have to understand the necessity of it. You both have to agree to be a part of it. This is one of the reasons why finances is one of the major contributors to divorce. We're kind of going off the rails here, but sorry. But it's a reality, right? And especially even for developers, finances and struggles with money is one of the major reasons for divorce, at least here in the United States. So, yeah, if you're not on the same page financially, if you're not on the same page planning and sticking with that budget, it's definitely not going to work. That's why I said budgets are not a silver bullet. Just because you make a budget doesn't mean you're magically going to become wealthy. But it's the beginning step, right? It's step number one to going down that path. So, but you do have to do it as a family. And I agree with you, Mel. Kids are the worst, man. No, I'm just kidding. I've got 4 children. I love them all, but they definitely cost money and they definitely make budgeting harder. And they eat up a lot of your money. So yeah, definitely. How do you make an app like that for a family? Well, basically you just do the same thing, and it's up to the person using the app to make sure that they're budgeting within the app for their specific use case. So that's some of the things that we're going to think about, right? When we're building an application is, how does somebody use this in different scenarios? How does a single person use this? How does a family use this, where you've got multiple incomes coming in, and how do you plan all that stuff? And again, a lot of that comes down to just understanding budgeting itself so that you can build out the application. So this is why, again, this is a learning project, really not just about development, but even about budgeting for you guys. And this is why we dive in and try to understand the industry, try to understand the topic of what we're trying to develop for, right? So that's really, really important. Yeah, and again, sometimes you just have to do what you can. If they're not willing uh, to use the application, um, again, you have to be on the same page, right? And you have to be willing to have those hard conversations. We're going to talk about there's a lot that goes into that, right? And if you're not on the same page, it's going to be very difficult to move forward. I would suggest do what you can. Um, Understanding that it's not going to be perfect and that it's not going to be complete and it's not always going to be followed. Find ways to make it easier for your partner to be involved in that. They So one of the things that you hear a lot about, I have we're gonna go late today. Just FYI, sorry, answering these questions that are not necessarily project related. I apologize if you if you want to come back here in a few minutes. We'll get back on topic. But so I've facilitated something called Financial Peace, which is put out by the Ramsey Solutions here in the United States. It's all about financial planning, budgeting, things like that, right? So one of the things that you have to remember is that people are different. If you're a developer, you probably are more of a nerd, and you've probably your partner's probably not. Your partner's probably more of a free spirit, and they don't like budgets, they don't like spreadsheets, they don't like things like that. So if you do like those things, you probably married somebody or with somebody that doesn't. And so it can be nerve-wracking and frustrating for them. And that's part of that process is you two coming together saying, hey, we want to do better at this together. And we're going to figure out how to work this in a way to where, both people have a voice, both people are involved. And again, there's some great, there's some great like training about that with conversations and stuff. It really isn't part of this program, so I don't want to go too far into that, but you might check that out. Ramsey Solutions, I think it's ramseysolutions.com. Yeah. There's lots of other places out there where you can get some help with budgeting and things like that. So I would definitely look into it. Don't give up just because the first time you tried, you kind of got shot down. So keep trying, be kind about it, but at the end of the day, do what you can, even if they're not going to be involved, right? So yeah, ease of use, absolutely, David. Ease of use is huge if you're going to, especially trying to get somebody to use this budgeting software that doesn't really want to be involved. The easier you can make it for them. My wife is a very intelligent person. Actually handles finances fine. She doesn't like to though. She doesn't want to sit down and talk through the budget. She doesn't, it's just not her thing. She doesn't like, I like it. I actually like going through a budget and building it out, which is weird because I'm kind of a spender too, but I like the process of it because I'm weird. Let's see if I'm missing anything else here before we jump in. Yeah, there was talk about having, multiple users. You would still, yeah, I mean, we're not going to do that right now. We're just going to create an application that anybody who opens it up would have access to that on that computer at the moment. Again, we're kind of building this for developers. We might do something that's more out there that people could sign up for in the future. We're just kind of building something minimal right now. So, and we'll get into that here in a few minutes too, because I want to talk through that reality. Yeah, there's lots of features you guys are mentioning here. Absolutely. So, you guys are conversing. I'll move on. Excuse me, man. Got heartburn today. Maybe the coffee's not a good choice for that. I don't know. We'll see. Okay. So, industry research. It's important that we understand budgeting. That's why if you still haven't had a lot of interaction with budgeting, maybe you try to do some research, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, try to do a little bit more. We'll talk about some of it. If you've got questions like that, we can kind of cover those briefly here in the live stream, but definitely you want to do your research. And there's several reasons why research is important. It's important for us to understand as much as possible about the client, about what they're doing, about the industry that they're in. And probably the number one reason for that is so that we can ask informed questions. We can ask questions that let them know that we understand what they're doing and what their goal is, but also that make sure that we do understand what they're doing and what their goal is, and so that we can ask questions that are going to help us help them. Because at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is we're trying to create a product that's going to help our client do something, right? We're trying to help our client be successful at something, either as a business or as an individual. And so we want to know what's going to help them. We need to know their industry as much as possible. And we can't be experts at everything. I mean, if you got multiple different types of clients, you can't be an expert at everything, and that's a reality, right? But you want to know as much as you can so that you can ask informed questions that will be able to help you shape the direction of the project to help them meet their needs. We want to know the industry so that we can build what they need the first time and not have to come back and rebuild things. There have been times, especially if I didn't know what the company needed, I didn't understand exactly what they were trying to accomplish, and we started building things, started going down a specific path, and then after a month or two of building, sometimes you come back and you're like, wait, you're asking about this thing, but that doesn't fit with what we've been building. Let's take a step back and figure out what this is supposed to look like. And then when you do that, all of a sudden you start realizing, oh, we didn't do this correctly, we didn't do that correctly, or this is not going to work the way that you want it to work. It works the way we thought it would work. And so asking those questions, understanding the industry from the very beginning is huge to making sure you don't have to go back and rewrite stuff, because especially if you're doing this as a freelancer, that's a good way to lose a client. If you have to go back and rewrite stuff, it's a good way to do a lot of work over again for free. If you have to go back and do stuff, but clients are not keen on paying you to do the same thing twice. I wouldn't be. So it's important that we get things right the first time as much as we possibly can. And understanding the industry, doing that research at the beginning is huge for helping us avoid that down the line. And then thirdly, doing that research, doing that industry research or that topic research, even the company research, asking all those questions, getting a full understanding of the project is really, really important, because at the end of the day, the client is going to look to us for input. Even if they're in a really technical environment, they are most likely going to ask us what we think at some point, what we think they should do at one point or another. And so if we have no idea about their industry or their company or their goals or what they're trying to do with this project, we're just here, build budgeting software, and we just go off in our little cave and start building budgeting software without understanding what their goal is, then we're not going to be able to give them good feedback when they ask us questions. Because here's the reality. Most clients know generally what they want, but they don't know how to get there. And sometimes in the process of that conversation, you find out they don't really even know what they want. What they really want is a solution. They want an end reality, but they don't even know necessarily what that looks like from an application feature standpoint. They just know, I want to be able to do this thing. And they may not have no idea what that should look like visually. They may not know how they want to interact with it. And so there's going to often be a lot of questions and a lot of time spent on, let's figure out what you actually need to get to where you want to be. And that's the thing, that if you don't do that, you're setting yourself up for failure as a developer, as a team, as a project team. If you don't take the time to go through that process of research and questioning and evaluation, you're setting yourself up for failure. You're setting yourself up for bad reviews when you don't meet the client's expectations under the budget that they're wanting to do. All those things are really important. And the reality is, most clients come to you assuming that you have the expertise and the experience to help them go from nothing to the end result that they want. And they don't always know what that end result looks like. They don't always know what pieces need to be a part of that. And so they're looking to us as the experts, not just as developers, but the experts as consultants, to understand what they do and help guide them down the path to what they need. So it's incredibly vital that we take into account and that we spend time on researching the industry and what we have, what they need in their application and what makes the most sense, so that we can help them get to where they want to go. All right, let's see. Saw some question marks in here. Is research something you need to do throughout a project or just at the start? That's a great question, Mel. Both. You need to do research at the beginning so that you can ask initial questions and understand when they say, I want to be able to manage my finances in a budget. You need to have some research ahead of time that says, okay, I understand what a budget is. I understand um, the different pieces of a budget, the process of creating a budget. I understand those things. So now I can talk to you about how you want to do that. But just because you have those conversations at the beginning doesn't mean that you asked all the questions that you need to ask. It also doesn't mean that you took good enough notes. Hopefully you did, but it doesn't mean that you took good enough notes and you recorded all the information exactly the way that you needed to for future conversations. So you're definitely going to have more conversations throughout the project, clarifying things. You might understand how they want to interact with something initially, and then they come back and say, no, that's not really what I meant. So as much as you can clarify at the beginning, but you also have to understand, depending on the size of the project, you can't go over everything. Clients don't want to do that. They don't want to spend the time doing that. So you have to figure out what is the MVP, right? So what is the minimum viable product? We're going to talk about that here in just a minute. So you're kind of leading me that direction, but you're gonna ask questions all the way through. That's why some teams have individuals called BAs, business analysts, where they'll actually interact with the client and keep some of those continuing conversations going so that the developers can get started on a project with some of the basic things, some of that MVP stuff. But yeah, generally you're going to have those conversations, not just at the beginning, but all the way through the project. Because sometimes things change in the project and you want to be able to catch those as early as possible in those conversations. So you're definitely going to keep up with those. Yeah, so I remember a modder once saying, I built you a bicycle and you want me to turn it into a motorbike. It was after that I wanted to learn code. That's awesome. Yeah, and that's the thing. You've got to capture client expectations at the beginning, and we're going to talk about that here in just a second. Yeah, David, the process can be fun. It can be enjoyable. Um, and again, at the end of the day, what we're helping ourselves and we're helping the client by going through that process. Sometimes it's not fun, especially if you have to drag a lot of information out of the client because they either don't know what to tell you, or they're just not great at communicating, or they just don't want to be in another meeting. Sometimes that can be difficult, but yeah, you definitely want to do that if you're going to be successful in the project. So let's see if there's any other questions here. Okay, question for you guys. Since one of your homework assignments was to go out and do some research on budgeting, I'd be interested to hear what are some of the things maybe that you learned about budgeting, about the industry of budgeting and budgets. What are some of the things that you learned along the way um, that maybe you didn't know, or that you were reminded of, or maybe just something that you thought was interesting? Throw that into the comment section. I'd love to kind of just peruse over those and see what are some of the things that maybe interested you, something that was surprising to you, something that was new to you as you did some research. So throw those into the chat here. We'll take a look at that here in just a second. But one of the things that you do when you're talking to a client is understand not just what they want, but understand what they're currently using, understand what they're currently interacting with, what they're dealing with, what some of those pain points are, what some of the frustrations are, because that's usually what happens is a client is using a certain process or a certain software or whatever, and they're not finding what they want. It's not working the way that they intend it to. And that's one of the things that the company that I work for does is we build custom software, right? We build custom web apps. And so the purpose of that is to build something so that the client can work the way that they want to work, or to work more efficiently than they currently are. So one of the things that you do in this conversation, in this research process, is not just understand the industry, but you need to understand the client's current frustrations and what they're currently using. So I want to jump over here and just show you a couple of things that I have used throughout the years as a budgeter. I don't know that I've ever used paper. Years ago, this might date me a little bit. I don't know how many of you have ever had a checkbook, but in case you don't know what that is, it's a excuse me, it's a little book that has checks in it, hence the word checkbook, right? So the checks usually had like a carbon copy thing underneath so you could see what checks you wrote, and it kept track of that. And you'd write a check and you'd tear it out and you hand it to somebody. But at the back of that checkbook, usually there was a ledger. And so you could write down all the checks that you made and that you paid out, and you could write down how much they were, and you could keep a running balance of what was in your checking account. This was before we had debit cards. Yes, I am old enough that I know what it was like to have a checking account before there were debit cards. And honestly, probably debit cards made things worse, although the ledger only helped you if you actually used it, right? So I guess I did kind of budget. That was more ledger, keeping than it was budgeting. Budgeting's a little bit different, which hopefully you've kind of figured out as you've been doing some research. But that would probably be like the first concept of budgeting that I ever had, was keeping a ledger of my checking account. As my mother would tell you, I did not do that very well. So yeah, way before online baking, David. Absolutely. I'm an old guy. So, but I did want to show you some of the things that I've used more recently, both as, well, honestly, I'll be honest with you. I didn't really budget, very much as a single person. Most of my budgeting has been done, as a husband, as a father. So to your question earlier, Mel, budgeting for me really became more important because of the family. So because there's a lot more going on in a budget typically for families than there are for individuals, just because of more people, more expenses, more people, more problems, right? So yeah, so let me show you a few things. I think I've got personal stuff cleared out of these, hopefully. But let me jump over to the desktop here. So this is a very basic version, well, somewhat basic version of a spreadsheet that I created. Let me expand this, make this a little bit bigger for you guys. Hopefully without me being in the way. Okay. So, and again, my goal with showing you this is not to help you create your own budget, right? This is just to kind of show you things that I have used over the last 5 to 10 years. So this is a budget. I can put the income that I have over here. And then I've got all of my expenses down here. So anything that I'm budgeting to put money in would go down here. I've got some, if I wanted to keep track of debts, or if I'm going to put money towards debt. Over here, I've got a column for, I like to track things based on when I get paid. So this would be a scenario where somebody gets paid on the 1st and the 15th. I've had that as a developer before. What's interesting is most of my development journey has been weekly pay or bi-weekly pay. So I've only had this, I think, in one job where it was 1st and the 15th. But I wanted to just, again, kind of show you there's lots of different ways that people want to track their expenses, track their income, how those compare. You'll see down here I've got the available funds for what I'm expecting and what I actually received. So if I got more money or if I didn't get as much money, so I can track that. I've got some equations in here that pull all of the money that I am expecting to pay out, compares that to what I'm expecting to get, and I'm over budgeting, so I'm actually $25. I'm going to be $25 short if my budget is met. So like if I spend, let's say I spend $25 less on groceries, well then I'm okay. But if I spend $25 more, now I'm $50 in the hole for that week. So That's not a good thing. But as you can see, some of you might be looking at this going, that is really complicated. And for me, this is kind of simple. But doing it in the spreadsheet format, especially if you don't know what everything is, just kind of looking at this fresh for you guys, this probably does look complicated. That might be why my wife looks at it like it's complicated. Again, she's a very intelligent person, but she doesn't necessarily like looking at this stuff. But this helps me think through the process of where my money is going to go, and at least plan it out. And hopefully I spend less. So over here, I've got how much I've actually spent, because that's what this spent column is. So this would be how much I actually paid for things. And I can track that from a paycheck to paycheck basis. Nowadays I do that from a week to week basis, because my current pay comes in weekly. But then I can also see what the income is, what I should expect. So over here, let's say over here, job 2 is when I get paid for that on the 15th, or maybe I need to do this a little bit differently. And I know this is a weekly thing. I get $50 a week or something like that for, I don't know, handling somebody's online budget thing. I don't know. So I don't know what these jobs are. This is my development job. This is some other job that I get paid $50 a week. So maybe, that might be an issue that you need to think about when you're developing your budget and when you're developing budget software. These jobs may not pay the same way the same time. So we need to be able to potentially track that. Are you seeing that this can get complicated? So this is a way that I've been doing it for a long time. Not too long ago, I switched over to Mint, which was a product provided by Intuit. This is not being kept up anymore, though. This is actually being closed, and it's being moved over to TurboTax or QuickBooks. I forget where it's going. Oh, Credit Karma. It's going over to Credit Karma. But they're not keeping actual budgeting features. They're just keeping some of the other features that are not really what I went there for. So I'm not even going to show you that product, just because I don't have an example version, so I don't want you to see all my personal information. So hopefully you guys are okay with that. But so that's another thing that I've used. Right now, I had, before we started doing this live stream, I had thought about just building my own software to work the way that I want it to work. Just to build it for me, not building it for anybody else to use. And so I wanted to just do something quick. I had heard a lot of people using things like Airtables for some of their prototyping and things like that. And I could have just developed it in any number of programming languages, but I wanted to try Airtables out. And I thought this was a good idea to use to kind of try out this product and see if these no-code solutions are all they're cracked up to be, right? Spoiler alert, they're not. So let me jump over here. There are some cool things about these no-code solutions. I told you we're going to go late on this part. So there are some cool things about these no-code solutions. They give you the ability to handle your data. So if you look at this is really like spreadsheets, right? Or like a database. The idea is that it's supposed to work sort of like a database, right? But it's also very similar to a spreadsheet. But as you can see, I've got lots of different tables of information. Sometimes it's things that I had to create in order to make the front end, the interfaces work the way that I wanted to. Like I had to build out this month, name, and date thing in order to get some of the selections to work that I wanted to. So it's definitely not something that I would recommend for any real product. If you need to do a proof of concept, you could do something like that. But what I found is I ended up building things ways that I would not have done it in an actual application, because I wouldn't have to do it the way that I had to do it here. But it's been an interesting learning experience, and I am using it. I'm using it fairly successfully and in sort of the way that I want to. But here's the here's sort of the front end, the interfaces that you can build with this, right? So I can build multiple pages. This is not actually hooked up and working correctly because I copied it over from my personal one. Um, but you can see like we've got our incomes here. We've got ones gets paid weekly. I can click on this and see some details and make some changes. So the weekly amount versus the monthly budget amount. This is on Fridays, right? So I get paid every week. So it would be on a Friday rather than on a specific day. But in order to make some of the different comparisons and filters that I wanted to, I had to put all of my potential line items in one place. Like normally I would split up income into its own table. I would split up expenses into their own table, savings into, like I would split all that information up. And we'll get to that, here in the weeks to come. But in order to make things work so that I could actually use it on the front end, I had to do some weird stuff with my data on the back end here in data tables. So again, I would not recommend doing these things, but this is part of that process of looking at what I've used before. Because again, we're building this for me. I'm the client, and so at least for illustration purposes. So we're looking at some of the ways that I've done budgeting here. Things that I don't like about it. It's hard you have to really understand the thought process of this being created. Over here, I've got a UI, so I can interact with the UI to some degree. So like I can add budget line items here. I've got these things called trackers. So I take a budget line item and I turn it into a bill that gets tracked for that time period. So I have to do all of that manually right now. Really, in Airtables, you can write scripts, but then you have to pay a fee to be able to add scripting. And I didn't want to do that. So I've got it set up to where I can do all these things manually. So I have to know, okay, I got to go in, I've got to manually create this, manually create that. Things like this is exactly what we want to understand, that are pain points of the client. We want the client to explain what they're doing. We want the client to say why it doesn't work the way that they want, or why it's a pain point, why it's a frustration. Okay. I want something to automatically create these things for me for the next month. Like I do this week by week. So for example, in my expenses, I've got a weekly bills tracker. Again, I had to create a bunch of unnecessary stuff in the back end to make this front end available to me the way that I wanted to, well, as much as I could, the way that I wanted to use it. Right. So like this is my current active paycheck. It's actually not anymore, but again, this is just an example. So I can go in here, I can see all the bills that I have due and all the income. So like this is income that's coming in. So I've received this income from job one. I can go in there and mark that. I got $1,000. Yay. All right. So all of that is in there. And for some reason, it's not showing other things. My personal one's a little bit more robust than this one. But as you can see, it's not great. It's not great, especially if you've looked at any other budgeting apps. This is horrible compared to those. But even those don't necessarily work, or are not easily conformable to what I want to do. So the whole goal of this was to see what could I do with this budgeting software. Another one that I've used in the past is from this group called Ramsey Solutions. Excuse me. Again, I've been a facilitator for some of their classes at my church, so I'm very familiar with their system and their products. Excuse me. But for those of you who are not, if you're just coming into the world of budgeting, might be a great place to get some resources. As you can see down here, we've got, if you click create a budget, they're going to take you, they want you to use their free software. It's an app on your phone. There are some paid features such as connecting your bank accounts and things like that. But you can do the basic budgeting for free. And again, this is actually a really good app. They did a great job on it, but it just doesn't quite work the way that I want to do my budgets. And maybe at the end of the day, I am just going to have my own completely custom software to do that. But they spend a lot of money paying a lot of developers to build these things. So it's not like it's trash, right? So there are some great options out there. And I think somebody mentioned one in in the Discord channel earlier this week, and I am trying to find it now. I can't remember the name. It was here it is. Fudget, Fudget. So that's the YouTube channel. I think there's a website for it. Yeah, fudget.com. So again, it doesn't look like it's bad software. It isn't necessarily the way that I want to see it or the way that I want to interact with it. But there's lots of options out there. I think somebody just asked a question here a second ago. Will we be making a few prototypes to find the thing that works best for us as users? No, but feel free to do so. So again, for the purpose of the project, we're gonna act as if I'm the client. So we're going to build this in a way that works the way that I want it to. But as we're building this, we might take into consideration other ways that people would want to use this software and make it flexible along the way. Because something to keep in mind is that as you go from job to job, I mentioned this a minute ago, as you go from job to job, the way you get paid is different. So the way that I want to manage my budget now may not work if I have to go get another job, let's say in case my company is watching this in 10 years when I'm in another, I don't know. But if I have to go to another job at some point, they may not pay the same way that I get paid now. And so we'll want to have some flexibility in there and think through that from a usage standpoint as well. That's questions that you would want to ask the person who, or the company that you're working with. Hey, have you thought about this? Have you thought about if your pay structure changes, what that's going to do from the way that you want to interact with your budgeting software? So while we may not create multiple prototypes, we'll want to ask questions, to your point, Mel. We'll want to ask questions that will help us develop something that's flexible as much as we can be. Now, we want to be careful that we don't try to be so flexible that we create this massive project that is more than what the company, the user, the client needs, right? So we don't want to get so crazy, and especially if you're building it like somebody like this or somebody like Ramsey Solutions, you're building something that you're paying a lot of people to work on. You definitely, or you're trying to make money off of, right? You definitely want to keep the scope as small as possible to have a good product, solid product. But you definitely don't want to try to just put everything in it that you possibly can. And that's kind of the next piece of what I wanted to talk about today. We're running up against time, which is about 3 till. Hopefully you can hang with me a little bit longer. I'm sorry, we kind of got caught up in some other discussion early on about budgeting. But take a look at some of those, do some research. There's other applications out there. See what other people have built. See what you think are good aspects to it. As you're looking at the things that I've built, you can maybe come back, watch the live stream later, come back to this section so you can pause it, maybe take a look at it a little bit. If you have questions about them, throw them in the Discord channel. We can talk about it throughout the week. Maybe if there's an opportunity you need me to go through something more detail, I can do that. Sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes you have to sit down with a client and just be like, let's actually walk through this. Let's go through, maybe you're developing software for a company that does customer service, right? And you need to sit down with somebody who's actually taking phone calls and say, how do you do your job? What pain points do you have? And then maybe you got to talk to the executives, and their job really is more dealing with reporting and understanding, metrics and things like that. And so you've got to sit down with them and be like, what are the metrics that you want to see? So they're, depending on what you're building, there could be multiple people you need to talk to in that whole process. And then you need to see what they're doing. You need to see what the pain points are in order to provide them a better product moving forward. And sometimes that means you're going to have to do things in phases, right? You're going to have to build a project in phases. Part of that's to keep yourself sane as a developer. And part of that's because the company may not have the budget to do everything that they want to do right away. And the key to that is starting, especially if you're starting scratch like we are, the key to that is figuring out what is your MVP, what is your minimum viable product. And I'm going to try to go through this fairly quickly so we don't go too far past the hour here on our content. Obviously, I'll stay on later for more questions and things like that, but let me just get through this real fast. Why do we want to develop an MVP, right? First of all, what is it? A minimum viable product. That might sound foreign to you as well. The idea is, what is the smallest product that you can create that provides all the necessary functionality for that company to do what they need to do. All right. Usually companies will want to have a product that does everything, which is great. That's more time and money for us, right? To develop something like that. But that doesn't mean that that's the most important thing, or that's the thing that they need to fix first. A lot of times, in fact, most of the time, what you can do is you can, as you're having those discussions with the company, you can find out what is the basic features that they need to do their job, or maybe what's the basic set of features that will get them by initially, that they can begin to transition some of that work that'll fix their most important pain point, something like that. So those are the types of things that we want to figure out so that we can create the smallest application possible at the very beginning. Sorry, my nose is really itchy. And so we want to have a minimum viable product so that we can kind of get a quick start. One of the things that you'll notice if you look at the Ramsey Solutions stuff, there's this thing called the debt snowball. He tells you to do that, to pay off your debts a certain way, which is different than a lot of other people tell you. He says start smallest and then build up. The idea of that is you get success quickly, and that's kind of the idea with an MVP, is you can build something quickly that gets the client moving forward. And I'll just be honest with you, when you provide value to a client, even if it's not everything that they wanted from the very beginning, you create a great relationship with that client. And that client is going to trust you more. That client is going to give you even a little bit more leeway in the future. That client is going to be willing to pay for the other things that you want that need to be added to that. And they're going to be happy because they're going to be actually be able to use something faster. There are a lot of philosophies about how to manage projects. We're not going to go into that. We're just kind of going to do the project. We're going to talk about all the different philosophies about how you should or shouldn't manage projects. You can go research some of those things like agile and waterfall and all those things. I think most of that's a waste of time, to be perfectly honest with you. At the end of the day, you need to communicate with the client. You need to make a plan. You need to create what that minimum initial work is. You need to decide on a budget for that, and you need to get it all in writing, right? So the big thing about the MVP is that helps clarify what your initial scope of your project is. And that's important because it gives the client a budget. You can say it's much easier to estimate a small amount of work than it is a large amount of work. You still may not be perfect in your estimation. In fact, I don't know that I've ever been perfect in my estimations. Just because, especially as a junior developer, you're learning as you're going at the same time too. So that's certainly not going to make things easier from an estimation standpoint. Some of that just comes with time and practice and things like that. So, but that helps you be more accurate with your estimation. So it helps them budget better for that initial scope of work. And then at the end of the day, if you have that in writing, that's a contract that you have them sign. This is the scope of work. It protects you when they come back and say, "Hey, this isn't working," or "this feature wasn't added," and you go back to the scope and say, "Well, that's not a feature that was part of MVP." So that kind of protects you from a legal standpoint, and it also protects the client from you if you're not keeping up your end of the bargain. I'll just be honest with you. there are some bad devs out there, and clients need to have an opportunity to come back and say, hey, you didn't fulfill your obligation. Hopefully none of you are going to do that. Hopefully I'm not going to do that. That's certainly not what my intention is. But there are some people out there who are not as good people, and they may have bad intentions even as developers. And so having that minimum viable product decreases that scope, ensures that it's something that you can do, ensures that it's something that you can do in a timely manner. It gives the client the ability to have that in writing, gives you the ability to have that in writing to protect both you and the client. It gives them the ability to budget. So minimum viable product, MVP, is really, really important, regardless of what your philosophy is of project management. In my opinion, deciding on what MVP is really, really important. So what I want to do for your homework this week, or for your ticket this week as part of the team, is I want you to think about what features, now that you've done, maybe you need to do some more research too, but what features do you think are MVP for creating a budget? Now, if you have questions that you want to ask me as the client, go join the Discord channel if you're not already in there, and leave questions in the LiveStream project LiveStream channel. Leave those questions there. That way, if others want to see that, they can see that too. So if you want to ask me questions as the client about how I want to do things, or pain points that I have, or things that maybe I haven't mentioned here on the live stream, do that in the Discord channel. And that'll be a little bit more like actual client interaction and asking those questions. So you can have that opportunity here this week. But next week, we're going to go over some of the features that you guys want to see, that you guys think should be part of that minimum viable product, that MVP. And how we're going to do that, I'm going to put up later today or tomorrow or Monday, depending on when I get time. I'm going to put up another Google form, and it's just going to be one question for you, probably just one question for you to answer. These are the things you just list out, the features that you think are important. And then next week, we'll kind of go through some of those. I'll probably shut it down maybe Friday. But I'll put announcements out for everybody to know kind of what the plan is for that. But I want you guys to think through, what should those features be in your understanding of budgeting, in your understanding of what I've shared about my pain points and frustrations. So figure out what those features are, maybe even kind of a description of how that feature works. And that'll be your assignment for next week. So again, this is all helping you think through the project ahead of time and ask the right questions ahead of time, so that you can then build something out, or we can build something out as a group together as a team. And again, we'll take all of those things and we'll figure out from what you guys come up with, what are those features that are most important, the most basic things that we need to have as a minimum viable product for the client. All right. So hopefully that all makes sense. You understand the purpose and the need for an MVP. Hopefully you have a better understanding of budgeting. Hopefully you have a better understanding of some of my pain points as the client. Again, if you have questions, throw them in the Discord channel, so that way we can talk about those throughout the week, because you might come up with more throughout the week. So think about those things, and we'll put those things. Don't leave your features in the Discord channel. Put them on the form that I'm going to put up, and I'll put the link in the Discord channel. Just that way I can collate them a little bit better from the form, instead of trying to pull them all out of chat discussions and things like that. So we'll do that through the Google form. Hard to think about MVP without having a billion scope creep. Yeah, that's the struggle, right? And that's why that's why for us as developers, it's good for us to get used to figuring out what is absolutely necessary to accomplish what the client wants to accomplish. Now, sometimes that means the MVP is still a pretty large project, right? And that's something that we need to understand. MVP doesn't mean, hey, it's only going to take a month. MVP could still take 6 months to develop, or even a year to develop, depending on what is absolutely necessary for that client. So just because we say MVP and we say small doesn't mean it's insignificant, right? It's what is most important, the main features, the thing that's going to help the client the most. What's the biggest pain point to solve? And what do we need to have in order to be able to do that, right? Because at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is we're trying to solve a problem for our client. We're trying to make them happy, make their life easier, make their business easier, depending on what it is that we're trying to do. But yeah, that's part of that struggle as a developer, is saying, okay, is this thing that I think should be part of the application absolutely necessary for the minimum viable product? And that can be a hard question to answer. Yeah, good call, David. There's things on the examples that I've shown, or things that I've mentioned that are frustrations to me. Those would be important things to take note of. Again, this is part of that process of, you might have to go back and rewatch something, or ask questions in the Discord channel as we move forward. So anyway, that's everything that I had. Sorry, went a little bit later on the main section of kind of walking through this project. Talked a little bit more about budgeting stuff and frustrations there that we won't do next week, so we'll be able to stay a little bit more on track and getting within the hour here. Hopefully this is beneficial for you guys. Again, if you've got questions, I'm going to stick around a little bit longer here, at least another 20 minutes, if not longer, depending on what we've got going on here with the chat and stuff, and questions that you guys might have. Again, try to keep questions about the project in the Discord channel, just so that people who may not watch this long or may not participate in other, in any ancillary questions and things, they don't miss out on that stuff. I want to make sure that we keep as much of that project stuff in the Discord channel so that everybody can see it and be a part of it too. And just drive people to the Discord channel so we can build a community there too. So killing two birds with one stone. So hopefully this has been a help. If you haven't already, click the like button. We've got several people who already have. That's awesome. Thank you very much. Click the like button. If you're not subscribed for some reason, please subscribe. That way you'll know when we go live. You'll get those notifications. You'll know when I upload other videos. I've got other videos I'm planning on recording probably Monday night that I'll be putting up later this week. Several different topics that I want to get out just in some short videos. And so I want to make sure that I just forgot what I'm saying. Subscribe so you get notified when I post those as well, so you don't miss out on that. And then another thing I don't talk about a whole lot, but share this with others. I've mentioned this last week, I think, but share this, live stream, share the channel, whatever. Tell other junior devs about this, because I think this is, I know this beginning part might be a little frustrating for some of you that just want to jump in and do code, but it's really important that you guys understand how this works and have a good foundation for yourselves personally, and then to be able to help a team in the future know how to go through the process of building a project from start to finish. So these first few weeks are maybe a little bit less fun. Next week, we're going to get into some of those features and thinking about data and how data relates to those features, right? And so we'll start looking at data and data schemas and relationships and things like that. Start thinking through some of those things based on the features that you guys help figure out should be part of our MVP. So join the Discord channel. As always, if you're watching this later, leave a comment if you have questions there, or join the Discord channel. Leave comments or questions inside the Discord channel so that everybody can see them and participate in answering them, or just being helped by the feedback from that as well. So, all right, so that's going to end the stream content specifically. But like I said, I'm going to stick around here. If anybody has any questions, you just want to chat about life and fun things, if we want to jump back on the more budget discussion, I don't know, whatever is interesting to you guys, we can sit and chat for a while. But if you're just here for the project stuff, I want to see real fast. I need to, now that we're done with the, hang on. now that we're done with the main live stream portion, I'm going to turn off the form. Let's see. I think I can do that. All right. All right. So the form should be off now. We had 10 responses, which is pretty good. I think we had about 10 people who were on most of the stream. So that's cool. I'll go through and take a look at those. I don't want to give away quite yet what it looks like is leading. Interesting. Interesting. All right. So I'll look at those later. Sorry. But yeah, I'll put something up here probably this afternoon, my time, and let you know what that looks like. So let's see. MVP features user interface login, simple interface, repeating, tracking visualization. Yeah. Hopefully I don't mess up this name too badly. I'm Anurag. Is it Anurag Mishra? Hopefully I said that right. MVP features user registration and login. We probably won't do that. It depends. So, like if we go the Laravel route, we've talked about that some. Again, we're not making that decision yet. We could start with a boilerplate that has that already included. So we might do that just so that we have it in place. I don't know. I'm still thinking through that, but that might be a feature that we would add. Simple interface for inputting income and expenses, basic budget tracking. Yeah. Visualizations are huge. Especially for nerds like me to be able to see, see things in charts and graphs and stuff like that. Comparisons, being able to compare, see, now we're talking about the project. Oh, well, being able to compare, last month or the last year, kind of see what my budget is looking like compared to the way that it was before, or expenses, things like that. That's always helpful. So absolutely. Let's see. Are you a gamer, Dave? Oh, man. So here's the thing, Trove. Sort of. I'm a board gamer. I have a collection, not a huge collection, not like a lot of other crazy people. But I've probably got about 50 or so board games that I've collected, and I have I wish it was monthly, but probably about every couple of months I have a group of friends that they get together and come over. Not everybody can make it all the time, obviously, but I've got a group of friends, anywhere between 8 and 12 people will typically come, and we'll have several different board games going at a time. When I was younger, I was definitely a gamer. I was into video games. Um, Obviously my first foray was Nintendo, 8-bit Nintendo. But so I know I have there's a soft spot in my heart for that. I can't I can't do the modern controllers. My kids have an Xbox, and I can't do it. Man, I've tried playing Fortnite. I'm just not. I'm not coordinated enough for that. I like thinking games. I don't always win, unfortunately, but I like more like strategy. Oh my goodness, strategy games. I like more board games. I kind of like the tactile interaction more than video stuff. I'm not against video games. Like I said, I mean my kids play them. Um, I just I know other developers, lots of other developers that are really into them. I just can't get into it. If I'm gonna play a game, I'd rather play a board game. Um, but I'll dabble in things here and there. So I would not call myself a gamer in the current traditional sense of what that means. So no. um, let's see. Justin, clap. I don't know. That's a single clap, Justin. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Yeah, show me the numbers. How do you DMD, how do you manage the investment Also, just a reminder, try to put some question marks at the beginning of your question. It's a little bit slower now, but in case chat picks up, that way I can catch them in the future. So how do you manage time investment into software dev tasks in a day-to-day process to avoid burnout? It's a little bit easier now as a senior developer, as somebody who's been doing this for a long time, because for me, it's all about, I tend to learn things more because I need to, um, not because I want to, or not because I feel like it's part of my development journey. If that clap, thanks, Justin. uh, so it's, I would say, if you're going to be practicing, sorry for the long pause there. If you're going to be practicing, if you're going to be uh, investing time in something, it's got to be more than just knowledge, um, or that's going to get old, right? If you're just doing it because you want to be an XYZ dev, right? A React dev, or you want to be an Angular dev, or you want to be a Java dev, or whatever it is, right? If you're just learning something for the knowledge aspect, it's gonna lose its luster. It's gonna lose its appeal. You're not gonna want to spend the time. Now there are aspects of, just like budgeting your finances. There's aspects of budgeting your time. If you've got a family, you've got to figure out what makes sense as far as how much time you can spend and still, have those relationships long term, and it make them enjoyable, right? I'll be honest with you, I've not done that well all of my career. There have been many times in my career where I've spent a lot of time not necessarily needed, just because that was more important to me, and that hurts your relationships, hurts your marriage if you're married, it hurts your relationship with your kids, can even hurt friendships if you're pulling back away from those friendships because of that. So that is a piece of it. You need to figure out what's the most important things in your life and plan around those. Because most of the time there's going to be relationships that are most important. Jobs, obviously, more important than you learning on the side. um, but how do you manage that time investment? For me, it's about putting the effort and the time into things that are purposeful, that have a longer term purpose than just knowledge. Because there's, in the development world, there's lots of things that you can learn. There's lots of things that you can know. There's nobody that knows everything about development. And so you need to have a purpose in what you're learning, because then you can budget that time out and say, okay, I need to learn this for this project, right? So for example, let's say we're going to do, I'm trying to think of something we probably won't do. We're going to do Go for the back end of this project. Well, I'm going to have to budget some time to learn Go. And that might look like 3 hours on a Saturday, because that's the only time that I have that's not going to conflict with other things. So um, I typically spend my learning time um, in things that are important to me outside of just learning knowledge. So if it's something that for example, I spent a lot of time working with the Airtables thing, learning Airtables. I really don't care for it, but I put the time into it because it was important for me to have something that would hopefully work better than what I wanted. So there was an importance to it. Sometimes I have to spend time outside of work learning new things that I'm not familiar with in order to be able to do my job during the working hours. So again, it's about what's important to me. There has to be something more than knowledge that drives that, because you won't do it when you don't feel like doing it, if there's not something motivating you outside of just knowledge, and then B, it won't be as useful to you if it's just knowledge as opposed to learning something for a specific purpose. So hopefully that answers that question. It looks like you got to follow up, especially if we're planning to be in software industry for the long haul. Is there a good practice to prevent burnout? also are the early signs to burnout so we can stop it from happening fully. Yes. Early signs to burnout. I would say the earliest sign to burnout is not enjoying what you do. If all of what you do is just work, you're probably getting burned out. Lack of sleep is a sign of burnout. If you're finding it difficult to sleep because you're thinking about projects and problems, if you're not able to lay it aside, so kind of lack of sleep as well as carrying it on throughout your day. Again, it's important for us as developers, as much as we can. You can't always turn the brain off. I mean, even as I'm doing this live stream, I'm thinking about things for one of my clients actually at the moment. And so you can't always turn it off. That's unfortunately just a reality of what we do, right? We're problem solvers. Problems get stuck in our head. We start thinking through those problems. You can't always turn that off. Doing other things. So if you find yourself isolating, if you find yourself not doing things that you normally would do, maybe it's, an outside activity, maybe it's spending time with your kids or your spouse, or maybe it's just something that you enjoy, like gaming. To Trove's point, maybe you like to play whatever, let's say Fortnite, right? So you like to play Fortnite and you typically do that for an hour a day, but you find you haven't played Fortnite in 2 weeks. Not that Fortnite necessarily is the most important thing for you to be doing, but that's a good sign that you're heading towards burnout. Because one of the problems with burnout is burnout happens because you're spending too much time, too much effort, or more time or more effort than you're normally used to, right? And the longer you do that, the closer you are to getting burned out. And so if you're having trouble sleeping, that could be a sign for it. If you're finding that you're not doing things that you normally would be doing, especially things that you enjoy, and that time is being spent on, going down this development process. Again, there's times where you can budget for that in your time, and you might just decide, you know what, for these 2 weeks, I'm not going to do gaming because I got to do this. If after 2 weeks you stop and you go back and you level set your life, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you find you're 3 weeks into that or 4 weeks into that and you've not made that transition back to normality, that's a really good warning sign that you are heading towards burnout. Now, burnout looks different for lots of different people. I've worked with developers where burnout is like a crash, right? Where they just like they hit a wall and they can't do anything. They can't think about a project. They can't write code. They just literally hit the wall. I've worked with developers who the burnout looks like a nervous breakdown. Just to be perfectly honest with you, they become anxious, have a lot of anxieties, start worrying about potentially getting laid off, start worrying about or being fired, start worrying about whether their code is good enough. So that can be a sign of burnout. But I think part of that is just understanding you and how you respond to that. Headaches is a very common way of knowing that you're heading towards burnout, especially during a short period of time. We have to remember that what we do is a very mentally taxing job. The majority of being a developer is not writing code. It's actually all these other things that we've been talking about, project management, thinking through things, thinking about what code I want to write and why I want to write that code and what's it going to do? What does it have to do? Making, thinking about the process of it. There's a lot of thought that goes into writing code. Even if as a junior developer, you only get very simple tickets, you still have to think about those tickets. You have to understand the ticket. You have to internalize the ticket. You have to think about what how you're going to accomplish that ticket, because there's obviously often multiple ways to accomplish a specific ticket. So um, it's a very mental process. It's something that's going to take a lot of thought, a lot of energy. Um, Even though I sit for most of my day, um, I'm tired. I'm tired at the end of an 8 hour day or a 9 hour day or even a 6 hour day. Sometimes I'm tired because there's a mental load. And a lot of people end up uh, getting headaches fairly frequently. And that can be a sign, especially if it's something new, that you're starting to get headaches more and more. That can be a sign that you're headed towards burnout, because this is a very mentally taxing thing. And that when you have mental fatigue, that affects your body as well. So that you could start getting fatigue physically, and where you just feel like you're tired all the time. So listen to your body. That's a huge key factor in thinking about burnout and where you're at. Relationships, having conversations with family, with friends, with those important relationships in your life. If you feel like that you're approaching burnout, talk to them, A, so that they can give you encouragement, but B, talk to them and find out, hey, have you noticed me kind of pulling back and isolating a little bit? Get their feedback. Tell them to speak into your life. Even if you don't ask for the feedback, tell them to be honest with you and say, hey, you're pulling back. You're not as available as you used to be. And again, sometimes you might have to have a period of time where you do that in order to do something that you want to do, and you make that sacrifice for a short term. But if you're seeing a steady decline in relationships, you're going to hit burnout. And again, burnout looks different for everybody, right? So burnout for you could look like complete isolation, and you realize that all my friends are gone, or nobody, everybody's kind of moved on in their life without me, and I'm just here, developing stuff. And now burnout to you is social anxiety, because you don't have those relationships that you used to have. So I think it's important to understand that burnout looks different from one person to the next. And so you're gonna have to try to figure out what of those signs you're starting to see, and then make a plan to ensure that you don't do that. Set timers, set alarms so that you're going to stop at a certain time, and stick to it. Especially when you're in the middle of a problem that you're trying to figure out. It's really hard to walk away sometimes. But you got to do it. You just got to do it. That was a long question, long answer. I mean, sorry. Hopefully that was helpful and makes sense. I think that was CW. Yeah. Um, let's see. Started studying PHP mainly because of the university. Do you think it's worth learning PHP these days? Do I think it's worth learning PHP? There will be a video coming out this week on this topic. um, but to answer your question now, yes, absolutely. I absolutely do think that it is worth learning PHP. That's what I program in. It is not going away, in my opinion. It's one of the easier languages to get into on the back end. There's some great frameworks, especially the one that we use, Laravel, is a fantastic framework. I don't want to spoil the video that I'm going to be recording for this week. So I won't go into a whole lot more detail, but I would say yes, PHP is still a great language. It's got many, many, many applications now. Are there other languages that are building steam? Absolutely. Are they great languages? Absolutely. That's just, I like PHP. So you can learn Python, you can learn Java, you can learn C#, you can learn Go. There's probably others I'm not thinking off the top of my mind, right? So JavaScript, obviously Node. So you can learn lots of different languages and frameworks, and all of them have applications. But I think PHP is still very much a great option for you, especially if you're learning on your own. There's so many great resources to learn PHP on your own. So I would say go for it. Celestino. Um, let's see. Are you thinking of it as web based from Ali? I assume you're talking to me, not somebody else. But yeah, I think we're gonna do this from a web application standpoint. So because that's what I do. That's what I would want as a product. So we're gonna go down that route as a web application. Um, I know we shouldn't be making those decisions before talking to the client, but I'm the client. I want a web app. So we're going to go down the web application rabbit hole. So, oh no, Risk. Monopoly? Are you serious? Are you serious with this? So at least you have Catan. I mean, Catan's at least a more modern, good board game, but Risk and Monopoly, I don't know about that. I mean, I'll play them, but they're not on my top of my list. Justin, mouse and keyboard is easy for Fortnite. I tried that. I tried I tried playing with the Xbox controller. That was a nightmare. Um, I switched over to mouse and keyboard because that's what I used to use in high school. You've probably seen memes of LAN parties where you bring your own computer, you all connect up to the router, and I did that a few times. And so, that would be my preference, would be to use the mouse and keyboard. I don't do it as much. Again, I don't game as much anymore. So I don't even have like a regular mouse. I just use my trackpad or my, whatever you call this on the Mac. But yeah, I would prefer that. So I did try that, with Fortnite, and it's still, I don't know if I'm just getting old, loss of hand-eye coordination. I don't know what it is, but it was not good. It is not a good result. Let's see. Oh my goodness, tactile strategy board game like Warhammer. I have not gotten into Warhammer. I just don't want to spend the money, to be perfectly honest with you. That's a lot. I've played a few miniature games, but Warhammer is definitely not something that I'm going to jump into just because that seems like a real money pit to me. I do have, what's the Star Wars X-Wing, I think I don't know if X-Wing is the name of the full thing, but the Star Wars, um, not model, miniature war game. So I bought the initial pack that has the two TIE fighters and the X-Wing in it. And we've played that a few times, and it's fun, it's fine, but man, I would not want to jump into that world too far. That's a lot of money. I mean, I honestly I've spent a lot of money on all the games that I have, but to put all that into one type of game, it's fun, but it's not something that appeals to me. Like I want to do that all the time. I like a variety of games. So the strategy war miniature thing is not for me. Um, yeah, so many more crazy kinds of board games out there than the classics. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, the old standbys like Monopoly and Sorry, and I don't even like those games anymore. So many better games uh, that are out there these days. And I mean, and what's cool is you can go to. There's a lot of like mainstream companies starting to put some of these other games out there. Like Target, you can find, if you're in U.S., Target often has some of these better games. More modern board games. So that's kind of fun. But yeah, I mean, you can still have fun with those other games. I just feel like there's so many better ones out there. Mel. If it uses a board, it must be a board game. Just like HTML has language in the name, it must be a language. Well, it's a markup language. It's a two-word, markup language, not just language. So, sort of. And there are things that I would call board games that are, or that would really, probably the better term for me is tabletop game. So that would include like card games, board games, RPGs, things like that. Those miniature games, war games. Um, Absolutely. Shoots and ladders. Oh my. Uh, I did get that for my children early on. For my youngest one, I think, had chutes and ladders, but no, we're not playing that on a consistent basis anymore. Um, are PHP and C similar? I'll be honest with you, I've never programmed in C. My understanding is that that is the case, Mel, that PHP is similar to C. Um, don't quote me on that, but I believe that that is the case. Obviously, they're going to be different, but my understanding is that C is, or at least the concepts of C are very similar to PHP. Maybe somebody else who's done both could chime in on that. Let's see. Learned PHP in 2006 using books only. Had no internet. Oh, you didn't have any internet. Oh, wow, Dimitri. That's crazy. I have not tried to learn any programming from a book. What's funny, so I have a 13-year-old, and he's starting to actually develop, jump into PHP programming. And but when he was younger, like we're talking like 8 years old, he would go to the library and he would check out books on programming, like Python or Scratch or things like books for kids. But he would check out these books and he'd read through them. But he never asked if he could. Well, once in a while he would ask for like Scratch, but like he was not on the computer all the time, like following the examples. He was just reading the books. So that's a little weird. He's a little weird. That's all right. We still love him. He knows he's weird. It's fun. but yeah, I've never really done anything with books from like a learning a programming language standpoint. I did use a book once from a teaching standpoint, just so that I had something like a curriculum to follow for teaching HTML, CSS, JavaScript for a class that I did years ago. But yeah, I've never tried to learn from a book programming. I know a lot of people have, especially people my age or older, obviously did a lot of learning to code through books because YouTube wasn't around at the time. And so, yeah, I mean, that's awesome that you're able to do that. So that's really cool. You're probably a better developer than I am if you can learn from the book. Monopoly's fun when you play by the rules, the real rules. Yeah, people don't like to do that though, because they probably haven't learned it the right way. And they get a little frustrated when you play by the real rules. It's okay. I can play Monopoly. If I'm at somebody else's house and that they bring out Monopoly, I'm not going to not play because I like playing board games. It just would not be on my top 50. All right, let's see. Civ 6. You talking Civilization? I don't think I have played any of the Civilization games. The only game that I played similar to that was Age of Empires. And I only played Age of Empires 2, I think. So, there's for what that's worth. Backgammon. Actually, I just learned recently how to play backgammon. That is actually a fairly interesting game. Chess, obviously, is that's kind of chess is a game that never goes out of style. So that's good. All right, Justin, I'm just getting started in coding, and it seems the best way to get my foot in the door is to become a full stack dev and learn HTML and CSS. Is that what we're doing here in this course? So the course here is not so much teaching coding. There might be times when I write code to give examples of things, stuff like that. So we won't necessarily be like teaching HTML, CSS, JavaScript, whatever the backend is going to be. But learning those things will help you be a part of the project and build this project, whether you're building it on your own, whether you're building it with us as part of the team. You'll need to know that, or you'll need to be learning it alongside with the project. Now, as far as getting your foot in the door, so this is a problem that I have with a lot of the training that's online. And even training that's in person, to be perfectly honest with you. And this is, flash a banner, this is my opinion. take it for what it's worth. Obviously all of this is, but I'm not a huge fan of most of the training resources out there from like a standardization standpoint. So like boot camps, career courses. I'm not a huge fan because most of them are producing the same exact product. They're producing front end heavy developers who are almost all React developers, and maybe if they do full stack, then they typically focus on Node, which is JavaScript on the back end, because they're learning JavaScript on the front end. It's just easier to stick with the same language for the most part. The problem is all of these companies taking your money and giving you the same instruction that they gave 20 people before you and 20 people before that and 20 people before that. They've created, and again, this is not, I'm not saying that they're bad people or anything like that. I'm just giving you the reality, right? They have created this massive group of junior developers that all have the exact same skill set. And all of these junior developers are trying to funnel down into very few jobs that are A, those specific skill sets, and B, that are available and open for junior developers. So trying to make yourself stand out in the junior dev market right now is very difficult because everybody knows the same thing. Everybody's had the same training. Everybody's doing the same stuff. My advice, and again, take this with a grain of salt. There's no guarantee with any of this. Obviously, my advice for a junior developer is A, figure out if you even like front-end development, because let's be honest with you, if you're not a very creative person, you may not care for front-end development. You just might be more of a nerd, more of a data person, and you like working with data, thinking about data structures. You like, building spreadsheets. If you like doing stuff like that, backend might be better for you anyway. And if you focus on learning a backend language that most of your junior dev counterparts are not focusing on, so something like PHP, like Java, like Python might be a little saturated right now. Go. If you focus on learning something like that, A, you're going to be different. You're going to set yourself apart. B, that's going to open up other potential opportunities for you that other devs don't have access to. Now, you may be somebody who is super creative and you don't like dealing with data as much. And maybe that just isn't what you should go down. And that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I would highly encourage, I think these days you have to be full stack. You have to at least know some front end development. You have to at least know, have the concepts of HTML, CSS, JavaScript down to where you can work with it. Even so, like at the company that I work for, we have all senior level developers, and we're a Laravel shop and a Vue.js shop. That's what our bread and butter is. Now we do lots of other things as well, but kind of our main focus, our main bread and butter is Laravel and Vue. Laravel's a framework for PHP. So Vue is a framework for JavaScript for the front end, in case you don't know. And we have some developers, again, all of these are senior level developers. We have some developers that are super, super good on the back end. Like they are just phenomenal. They can knock out the back end like nobody's business, but they have zero desire to work on the front end. And they're just not as good on the front end. That's just a reality, right? If you don't enjoy something, you're probably not going to put as much effort into it. That's fine. We have some developers who are much better on the front end than they are on the back end. But in our situation, we have to be able to work in both. And so you have to know both of them. You have to be able to work in both of them. That doesn't mean that front end is your strength or that back end is your strength or vice versa, your weakness. But you need to at least be familiar with it. So I would not say that is necessarily the guarantee to get your foot in the door. All of that explanation for this. That's not necessarily the way to get your foot in the door, but you're going to need it. So I would learn the basics of it so that you can use it and use it effectively. But personally, I would tell most junior devs right now, focus on a secondary backend language, because that's going to open doors to you, probably other doors, better doors to get your foot into development than the front end, at least at the moment, in the current market. So again, sorry, long explanation. Hopefully that's helpful. Let's see. That was sorry, that was for you, Justin. I don't remember if I said your name. Uh, let's see. You guys are talking to each other, so that's cool. You can start learning the language you want to program in from the very start. Yeah, I mean, and there's nothing wrong with learning multiple things. What's interesting about experience is, especially when it comes to development, is the longer that you've worked and learned as a developer, the easier it is to pick up other languages. So, like, I started off learning PHP, I think around 2008, if I remember correctly, just for myself, to be able to do backend development. I understood that there was more things than just the front end. I learned about that. I was like, oh, that's cool. Let's learn something there. So I started learning PHP. So I worked in PHP for years, right? And then I actually had projects that came up that I had to, do some work in Java, and I had to do some work in I don't know if it was C# or .NET. It was a .NET project. I had to do some work in that, and I didn't know anything about those languages. But because I was used to programming in PHP, the general concepts were the same. It's just a matter of understanding how that language functions, how the syntax works in that language. And you can, when you've picked up one language, it's a whole lot easier to pick up other languages in the future. For example, the first JavaScript framework that I learned was Angular. Which is a little complex in my opinion. But then I picked up Vue after that, and Vue was a piece of cake to pick up, partially because Vue is pretty easy to learn, but also because I had been doing development in PHP. I'd been doing development in Angular. And so learning Vue was very easy to pick up. Now I'm working with React as well. And when I started working with React, it was like, oh, I kind of had the basics down as far as what it's doing. It just does it a little bit differently from what I'm used to. And so I'm pretty much able to just work in React without a whole lot of, training, because I had experience learning other languages in the past. I still look stuff up, obviously, but I can just jump into a React app now and work on it. Does that mean I'm an expert? No, but I can build a React app. I can work in a React app, even though it's not the first one that I learned, and it's not the one that maybe I like the most, right? I can still work in it without having to be an expert at it. And that is something that you'll see over time as you go. The more things, the more familiar you get with programming as a whole, the easier it will be for you to pick up new things down the road. So if you're feeling like everything is just so new and frustrating, and you've got to learn all these different things, narrow your focus and get good at that one thing. And good doesn't mean expert. It just means get to where you're generally doing the things that you want to do without having to look up every other line of code, right? So once you get used to programming, you'll pick up other languages kind of by necessity and sort of by accident, if that makes sense, as you go. So let's see. I'm going to learn PHP. See you in 2 years. So I'm going to put this link on again, I'm going to be putting a video out about PHP and why I think you should learn PHP, but I'm going to, let me share this link, because I'm going to put this link on that video as well, but I'll go ahead and share it here. So this is my this is the place that I would typically send people to on YouTube to learn really lots of things, but this specifically, is this the one I want? Yeah. This specifically for PHP. Whoop. Started playing. All right. So let me throw this in the chat here. This will give you a really great start. I really like Traversy Media. I think his name's Mike is the guy who does these tutorials. This is where I'll typically send people. I'll send people to Traversy Media. Here, I'll give you this view here. I'll send people to Traversy Media. This is a PHP crash course for even starting off JavaScript, CSS, HTML. He's got great courses. I just feel like he does a really good job explaining things, and so there's lots of great content creators, lots of great course creators. I'm not saying anybody else is worse or that he's the only one you should go to. This is just the guy that I found not too long ago, and I thought was just really does a really good job. So this is typically where I send people. So if you want a crash course on PHP, this is a good one. I've gone through about half of this with my kids because I wanted them to learn PHP. So I would highly recommend this course. And again, he's got lots of other courses here. As you can see, he's got 2.1 million subscribers. I'd say is pretty popular. Which by the way, if you're not subscribe to the Dev Mentor Dave YouTube channel. Join the Discord channel so you can interact with us, all that fun stuff. Like the video here, the live stream here. Like all the other videos. Tell people that we're here. Anyway, so he's got so many things, lots of great content. And he keeps it updated. That's the cool thing. Traversy Media, he does a great job of updating stuff, keeping up with the latest things. But typically, I'll send people to these crash courses here. I actually haven't done the Vue one. That would be interesting to look at. But yeah, he's got a lot of great advice. He's got a lot of guest creators. I haven't seen this. That's interesting. So this is the guy that I typically send people to on the YouTube. So check him out, Traversy Media. Hopefully that's helpful to you guys. I think it's very helpful. I've gone there for learning some things myself. So I just like him, give him some, like he needs my help, getting followers, but give him some love there. All right. Yes, good advice, CW. Take it slow. 3-hour video is a real killer. Yeah, I would probably what I would do is watch the whole thing. So watch the whole thing once, to get an idea of the things that he's going to cover, right? Just to hear terminology, hear concepts, and then once you've gone through that once, just listen to it, and you may not even have to listen to it. Just play it while you're doing something else, and hear the concepts, hear the things, hear the terminology, get used to that part of it, and then to your point, CW, go back and just take 30 minutes, or he's got, again, if you look at transition back over here, if you look at his I left it over, nope. All right, so if you look at here, he's got everything broken up into sections, right? So just decide, I'm going to do this section, I'm going to do these 2 sections. Or if you open up here, he's got all the sections time-stamped. See, these guys are so much better than I am. I don't timestamp anything. But I'm also not doing courses like that, so maybe it's not a big deal. But he's got everything time-stamped out as far as what he's going to be teaching. So maybe you listen to it the first time and you're like, I don't care about Linode sponsor, right? So you skip that. And you might be like, I understand loops and conditionals, like those are very similar to other stuff that I've written. I don't have to jump into that in more detail, right? So there might be things that you just don't need to spend time on. You just need more kind of the basic understanding of the language and the structure, and some of the other things kind of play themselves out based on knowledge that you have. Or you may not know any of that stuff yet, and so you need to jump into this and just take it a chunk at a time, and work through it. But these timestamps would be really helpful for you on that. He's got that on probably all of his courses. Says he just does such a great job with his content there. So yeah, definitely take it slow. It's not about how much you get through. It's about how much you understand and can implement. It's about how much you can take what you've learned and put it into a real world practice, a real world project. So how would you use that to be developing what we're developing, right? Whether it's from scratch or whether I think he even has a Laravel course too, which is where I'm leaning. We might end up in this project, but anyway, check that out. Lots of great resources there. And again, there's lots of people on YouTube. You know, don't just assume that he's the best or the only one. There's lots of other great options out there. If anybody has ones that they've used online that they find helpful, throw them in the chat, throw them in the discussion channels over on the Discord server. So, you know, share that kind of information with one another so that we can help make sure that everybody's getting the same type of help as they're learning and growing. Let's see. Dimitri. Are you talking about Traversy? Dimitri? I think you are. Yeah, if I didn't know that he was self-taught. It doesn't surprise me though. Just the way that he talks about development, I'm not surprised. Honestly, some of my favorite developers are self-taught. I haven't worked with now that I think about it, I haven't really actually worked with that many developers that are not self-taught. Um, Now they may go through like a boot camp or something like that, but really at the end of the day, all of us are self-taught because we have to learn so many things outside of whatever training we initially had. So any good developer, somebody who's continually growing, and typically that's going to be self-taught once you get out of boot camp or whatever. So that's just a reality. Oh, my coffee's cold. Ugh, I don't like cold coffee. Switch back to water. Let's see. I saw another question in here. Started after 30, 34, 30. Wow, that's crazy. Well, I started, let's see, I started full time in 2011, which I would have been just under 30, I think. I don't know. I can't do math on the fly. Well, 2011, I would have been 30 because I was born in 81. Yeah, so I would have been 30. So yeah, maybe that's why I feel that connection to him, Dimitri. Maybe that's what it is. From Mel, what would you suggest as a first project to attempt on your own in PHP? Man, I don't know. I mean, I'm not a fan of prescribing first projects. You know, there's if you go through a tutorial, you're going to develop different things in the tutorial. I My suggestion is always this, and I always rethink it every time somebody asks this question. But every time I keep coming back to this answer, um, think about your life. Think about frustrations that you have that could be solved by some sort of application, right? So, for example, budgeting, right? So we're building a budgeting app. The reason why I've been thinking about that for a while is because I have a problem. I need to budget. I want to budget. I want to do it a certain way. I want to have flexibility in the application that I'm using. And so it makes sense if I were to learn a new programming language, it would make sense for me to learn that programming language by building a budgeting app. Um, Maybe that's a little bit too grand for you. Maybe it's just something else that helps you um, that helps you just keep track of tasks. I know we kind of laugh at like to-do lists, but maybe there's a certain way that you handle your calendar that writing a calendar app might be better than what's available in Google or Apple or whatever calendar app you're currently using. For example, my wife has been wanting me to build something that I've not built. yet. um, there's this calendar thing that she's looked at. That she would consider using and buying, but it's too expensive. And part of her thought process is I could build the same thing, so why spend the money on it? But I haven't built it, so maybe it's something that would help your partner. We were just talking about some money frustrations. Maybe there's something that something that you can use in that relationship that would help them in their work or in their personal life or something like that. Um, it could be something as simple, for example, for my board games. I have an app that I downloaded that somebody built to track all of my board games and track when we play them and how often we play them, and even track what the winners were and the scores, and it's kind of cool. I like it because I'm a nerd and like be able to see graphs of who's won the most. Usually my friend Ben. If he can make it, he tends to win the most, which is really annoying. But but it's a cool little app, and it's something that I may not have ever thought to build myself, but now that might be something that I would try to build if I was learning a new language. So I wouldn't build something off of somebody's recommendation. I would look at your life, maybe apps that you currently use that you would want to build something that does the same thing, or that you want to build something better using that new language. Um, that would be the direction that I would go, Mel. Hopefully that makes sense and it's helpful. I find VS Code frustrating. Is it possible to mod it with PHP? I'm not sure what you mean by modding it with PHP. I'd have to know what your frustrations are with it. I use a fairly stripped down version of VS Code. I don't have a bunch of extensions in mine. I know that they can be very helpful. Sometimes they conflict though. Sometimes I have to use specific extensions for a client or for the company that I'm working for. They may require specific extensions for linting or things like that. Um, but yeah, I would have to know what the actual frustrations are. Modding it, I don't think you can mod it with PHP. Obviously, you can add extensions to help you write PHP, but I don't know off the top of my head what it's written in, to be honest with you. But I'm fairly certain you can't change it with PHP. But yeah, there are other code editors out there. Just because everybody pretty much right now uses VS Code doesn't mean that that's the one for you. Um, when it comes to PHP, when you're writing PHP, there's a company called IntelliJ. They write software specifically for different programming languages. I think they have a general one as well. IntelliJ. JetBrains is the name of it. Let me pop this over here. JetBrains.com. I know they've done. Let's see. GoLand. See, they have lots of different IDEs for specific things. So, like, what's the PHP one? PHP Storm is specifically, so they have tools built in specifically for working with PHP. They've got tools specifically for this is probably Go. Yeah, Go. Let's see. Yeah, so primary language. So you can find this one's ideal for Java and Kotlin. So you can get some very specific ones. Um, I, you have to pay for them though. So, and I honestly I don't know how much value they actually have. Um, I'm sure for somebody who is maybe only coding in that language all the time, maybe this is a great option. I don't know if Atom is still available. So I worked in Atom for a while. Looks like it's still out there. This is again something you can manipulate with JavaScript files. You can add extensions and things like that to it. I liked this one. I was using this before I moved to VS Code. They're very similar in many ways, but Atom's probably even more stripped down. Um, but you can do some manipulation with that using JSON files. Let's see what else. I mean, if you really want to go old school, you can go like Notepad++. Um, it's kind of ugly in my opinion, but some people still use it. I don't know. I don't know that I would really recommend it. My first editor was Notepad itself. It's the original Notepad where it didn't have all these features. So you could do something like that if you wanted to. Um, I'm trying to think there's any other editors, but yeah, with VS Code, I mean, you can keep it pretty stripped down. I could type VS Code. Um, you don't have to include all these extensions and things. Um, only use what you're gonna use. And that's what I do. I don't do a whole lot of stuff, and sometimes I'll use the terminal, sometimes I won't. Sometimes I'll just use my own terminal uh, on my Mac. So I think it's more of a matter of choosing what you want to use, um, and ignoring the rest of it or turning the rest of it off. Um, so I don't know. I'd have to learn more about what the issue is, because I think depending on what your issue is, you might run into the same problem with almost any IDE. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if that's helpful or not, but there's at least some other options. Let's see. Dimitri. Yeah, I think you mentioned this before, Dimitri. Wife's a nail tech, manicure, creating an app for managing booking for her services. Yeah, that's a great thing. So again, taking an issue or a need, they're right there in your family and finding a solution and build something out for them. Absolutely. Microsoft Visual Studio and doing C Sharp. Yeah. Still use Notepad on occasion to edit. Is Notepad still a thing in see, I use a Mac, so I haven't used a PC for a long time. Is Notepad still a thing? That's funny. I like Notepad plus plus for looking at JSON and comparing documents. There are some plugins you can download. Yeah, that's true. I actually have used that before for document comparison in Notepad plus plus. Yeah, I went. So it's kind of funny. Started with Notepad. Went from Notepad to Front Page. Front Page was I mean, it's been so long since I used Front Page. Notepad to Front Page. I think Front Page had an editor, but it was also like visualization as well, if I remember correctly. But then I went from Front Page to Notepad plus plus, and then I went from Notepad plus plus to Dreamweaver. And some of you probably never even heard of Dreamweaver, but Dreamweaver was put out by Adobe, and so I used Dreamweaver for several years. Um, it was kind of buggy. It wasn't great. And then from Dreamweaver, I moved to Atom, I think. And I used Atom for quite a few years. Oh, excuse me. And then probably over the last 4 or 5 years, I've been using VS Code. I think, if it's been out that long, it was out a good bit before I started using it. Um, I refused to use VS Code for a long time just because it was Microsoft. To be perfectly honest with you, um, I'm not bitter or anything, but I use it now. So Macromedia Dreamweaver for the win. That's right, CW. Let's see. The pirate software uses Notepad. The pirates. I don't know what the pirate software is, unless you're just saying that software pirates use Notepad. I don't know. Notepad still comes with Windows, but I use Nano on Linux and VM just simpler. Yeah, Nano's okay. I'm actually more of a Vim guy. If I'm gonna do it on the server, I started with Nano. and it was fine. I'm certainly not like a Vim proponent or lover like maybe Primogen is, but I am learning it more. The more I'm using it, the more I'm learning it, the more I'm uh, appreciating it. I'd prefer Vim on the server as opposed to Nano these days. But I have used Nano and it's fine. Um, but check out Vim. uh, all right. Any other questions or comments or thoughts? We've got, oh wow, it's 12:15. We've got 2 hours and 15 minutes. See, this is what happens. You guys start asking me these questions and I get off on tangents, and and then we have these really long streams. So that's good for the channel to have a long stream, but I don't know for everybody else if it's if it's very good coming and watching it later. I know I posted about this, but just FYI, as a reminder, I'll probably take some things from this discussion here, this second hour discussion, break some of those up into some smaller videos to post out throughout the week, or maybe future weeks, just to give people some of that content so they don't have to sit there and watch through the whole thing, because I know a lot of people won't do that. Another question that I wanted to throw out there to you guys, would it make sense? I don't know how much you're going to go back and rewatch this if you've been on the live stream, but if you miss a live stream, would you rather go back and watch the whole thing, or would it be helpful to have just that first hour as its own video as well, so that you can get just the product, or just the project information, minus the intro and things like that? Like, does it make sense for those to be separate videos, so you can, if you miss a live stream, you don't have to go through the whole thing, you can just see the project info? Again, I don't want to just make a bunch of videos for the sake of making videos. I don't want people to feel like I'm just out here trying to spam people. I want it to be helpful. I want to make sure that we're putting snippets out and putting videos out in such a way that it's going to be helpful to people who maybe can't come to the live stream, or they miss a live stream. I want to make everything as accessible as possible. So give me some feedback on that. If you think something would be better than the way that I'm doing it, let me know. Because at the end of the day, again, the content is for you guys, right? The channel is for you guys to help you out. So if it doesn't make sense for you guys, why should I do it? Just because, that's the way that YouTubers do things doesn't mean that that's what's going to work best for you guys. So I don't want to just be another YouTuber. I want to make sure that I'm putting stuff out in a way that's going to be helpful to as many people as possible here on the channel, specifically junior developers. So let me know what feedback you have. Again, doesn't have to be right this second, but just over time, feel free always to give me feedback on the videos. Give me feedback in the Discord channel. Anywhere that you see opportunity to give feedback, feel free. Because again, this is for you. I have limited time to do this, so I want to make sure that I'm spending my time on stuff that's helpful, and instead of just spending my time on stuff that I think will be helpful, or that I think will boost the channel ratings or something like that, right? Because at the end of the day, if it's not helpful, the channel's not going to be good, right? And people aren't going to come to it. So I want to make sure that the channel is good in providing what you need and what you want. So always give me feedback of things that you like, things that you don't like, so I can take that into account and make this as helpful and as useful to you guys as possible. So let's see, just timestamp the large video. That's true, Justin. That is probably something I should do. I don't honestly know how to do that. I should probably figure that out. I'll take a look at that. I think that's probably a good first step, is timestamping the original video. That's a good point. I should have thought of that. Thank you, Justin. That makes perfect sense. You don't envy that. Honestly, you probably have noticed this, but the videos that I do put out are not super professional. And there's a reason for that, because I don't want to spend all my time editing. I want to spend my time giving you good content And so the time that I have to do that, I want to be spent in the content itself. And so the editing, I don't edit my videos to attract a massive crowd. Maybe I should, I don't know, but it's just not how I do it, because at the end of the day, I want you guys to have the information. Now, I may do some of the videos with a certain formula, to try to help make it easier, more palatable to listen to. But yeah, the editing, I don't spend a bunch of time editing, to be perfectly honest with you, just because I don't find it's not helpful. I'm not doing this full time. I have a limited amount of time. I just want to do the editing as quickly as possible. So, so you get probably an inferior product, and I apologize for that. But yeah, I'm not wasting a bunch of time in my editing. You can probably tell when you watch the videos. Both would be nice. Separate project video feed with the live stream still being available. Yeah, I think I will cut it up because I can edit that pretty quickly. We'll see. I was thinking having a separate YouTube channel for live stream and replays and another channel for your own topics. Yeah, especially right now, I really want to avoid trying to manage multiple things. I think if I were doing this full time, that might make more sense, because I would probably have other content. I've thought about doing content on mentoring, for people who want to be mentors. I don't have time for that. And at the end of the day, to me, the most important thing right now is helping junior devs. So, maybe someday down the road, if I get the opportunity to spend more time doing this stuff, I might create multiple channels. The other problem is then you've got to manage multiple channels and build subscribers and multiple channels and all that fun stuff. I don't know. That would be a bit much right now. And honestly, at the moment, I'm not spending a lot of time on my own topics. I'm spending my time on this. This is kind of the main thrust of the channel right now, is this project live stream series. So, so I think right now it's not as big of a deal. But yeah, it's a good option. I know a lot of YouTubers do that, especially if they have similar but not the same content, that might have kind of different different use cases, different audiences. That might be something that I look into in the future for sure. Let's see. All you do is type the times in the description. It's super easy. Just as you see it, type it. Super easy. Oh, okay. Interesting. Okay. I'll check that out, Justin. Don't edit, just timestamp. That might be the way to go, especially for this stuff. Even my standalone videos, though, are pretty simple editing. So, yeah, I think I'll try that, Justin. I'll work on the timestamps and getting those up. I might go back and start with the first one, especially, I mean, we're coming up on 2.5 hours here for this one, so that might be helpful. But I do feel like some of these other discussions afterwards, because they're not project related, would be beneficial as their own videos. So I think I might still do that, because again, I can just cut those out and stick them in a video with an intro slider thing, and that's it. It doesn't take too much time. So I might still do that, but for the live streams themselves, putting the timestamps in, that's a good idea. I'll get on that and put that in there. For timestamps, better make them on the go on live stream. Rewatching the video just for that is a lot of time. That's true. But I could speed it up. So, and I can kind of jump from topic to topic. I can probably find where those things are, because I actually have notes for what I go through on the live stream. So especially that first period, I have an idea already generally of what I've talked about when. And so I can go back and through that pretty quickly. It shouldn't be difficult. It's just a matter of finding about where I started. And maybe one of these days I'll get even fancier for the live streams and have like a slideshow or something that talks about the main points or something. I don't know. Maybe someday when I have more time to plan that stuff out. if ever I can get that up there for it. So uh AI can timestamp for it. That's interesting, Omar. I do use, so I haven't done this recently actually, but for the shorts that I put up, I use an AI thing called Opus Clips. Um, and I do, so it does, obviously do some timestamps through there. That's true. I could just run the text through AI and have it give me the timestamps for specific subjects I just find highlight. That's a good idea. That'll save some time too. So you guys are full of helpful tips, even for me. See, you learn and I learn and we all learn. It's great. All right, I'm gonna hang on for another 5 minutes here. Um, these live streams are getting longer and longer, but I actually do have some things that I need to get done today. So I'll hang out here for a couple more minutes and I'll cut it off at 12:30 here, my time. So if anybody else has any other suggestions or questions or comments they want to throw out, certainly do that. And again, I know you guys, I mean, you guys are, there's 8 of you still on here at the moment. You guys are hanging in there for the long haul. And I really appreciate it. I love interacting with you guys. This is what I had hoped for when I started the channel. I just really appreciate you guys, and I appreciate you taking time out of your day to spend it with me. Because personally, I don't find myself that interesting, but apparently you guys do to some degree. I don't know, maybe it's just to laugh at me. I don't know, but hopefully you guys are enjoying it and you're finding it helpful, and I appreciate it. So. He tipped the cold coffee down. I will be. As soon as I get off the live stream, I'm going to tip the rest. Actually, no, that's not true. I'm going to go microwave it. I'll microwave it and drink the rest of it, because if I just pour it down the sink, my wife will look at me with daggers. She actually likes cold old coffee. It's weird, but we have a good symbiotic relationship. I'll drink the coffee while it's hot because she doesn't. It has to cool down a little bit for her. It doesn't have to be cold, but it has to cool down. She can't have all the super hot stuff. So I'll drink it when it's hot, and then it cools down a little bit. She can drink some, and then she'll drink anything that's left over the next day. Like, but she doesn't. She likes it, so it works for her, and it works for me because then the coffee doesn't get wasted. Although I don't know how much of a waste coffee really is. I mean, it's just running water through beans. It's not, there's not that big of an expense there, right? So I don't know. Don't microwave it. Why? Why wouldn't I microwave it? I just need it hot. That's the only thing. That's not gonna change anything, is it? I'm not giving myself cancer if I do that, am I? Give you a paycheck for the golden nuggets. Your paycheck is my giving you golden nuggets. How's that? Hopefully, or maybe they're just pewter nuggets. I don't know. It tastes worse. I don't know. Well, like maybe if I were just drinking straight coffee, it might taste worse. But I like doctorate with stuff I probably shouldn't, cream and sugar and stuff. So it doesn't. I haven't noticed a weird taste. Maybe you need a better microwave, Mel. Oh my. The problem is now I'm drinking it cold as we're talking about the coffee. And I don't know why, because it doesn't taste good. Excuse me. Wow, my voice is about shot. I don't know if you guys can hear the difference from when I started the stream down to where I am now, but the voice is definitely going. As a developer, I don't talk all the time. It's odd. It's like I spend my time writing code or thinking or things like that. So it's definitely beginning to wane here. So it's probably good to shut this down now. So anyway, I think some of you guys starting to drop off. That's awesome. Have a great day. Thank you for spending time, especially those of you who are halfway around the world and it's midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning or later. For you, thank you for hanging out with me and for participating, for giving feedback, for jumping in on this project. Obviously, once we start writing code, we'll do the reviews and things and talk about it here, but you don't have to write the code at 11, 12 o'clock at night. Thankfully, some of you might, just knowing your habits, but But yeah, so thanks again for jumping on here. I really appreciate it. I hope that this is helpful to you. I know these beginning stages are not necessarily as interesting as getting in and actually starting to develop something. And I know you're probably getting antsy for that. I'm honestly getting antsy for it. I'd love to just get started on it, but it's important that we talk through some of these things as we jump into this project. So thank you again for hanging out. You can help the AI by stating during the live stream that this is the next subject and stating that subjects are. That's true. Yeah, I can give it help, but I don't want to help AI. That punk, I don't want that punk taking my job. No, I'm just kidding. So, yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll find a way, but I'll definitely start putting the timestamps in. That'll help people moving forward. I think that's a great suggestion. Thanks for that golden nugget, Justin, on that one. So good times. Thanks, guys. I will see you all next Saturday. I don't think I announced. Did I announce what we're doing next Saturday? I don't remember. But so next Saturday, we're going to talk about the data. We're going to talk about how we organize that data, database structures to some degree, understanding what data we need for the features that you guys come up with as the MVP. So I'll post some of that stuff in the Discord channel later today, just so everybody remembers, and I'll get that form up for people to submit their feature ideas as well for the MVP. So thanks everybody for hanging out with me. Looking forward to seeing some of the features you guys come up with. Looking forward to pushing forward on this project together as a team. So thank you for everything that you guys are doing. And again, if there's anything that I can do to help you along the way, leave comments in the Discord channel, leave comments here on the YouTube channel, on the YouTube video, live stream afterwards if you need to. And and I will see you all next week. I'll talk to you later.